Welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm Sharon Giroux, your resident skeptic who asks all the tough questions. And with me is Jennifer Neal, our manifesting maestro. Whether you're rolling your eyes or raising your vibration, we dive into all things manifestation, mindset, and energy from every side. Hit subscribe, settle in, and get ready for spirited debates, surprising experiments, and laughter on the journey to creating a life you love. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm Sharon, your skeptic, and I'm here with Jennifer, our believer. And today we're talking about something I think almost everybody has experienced. What happens to us when life knocks the absolute crap out of us?
Yeah, that's putting it nicely, isn't it?
You know me, always direct.
Yeah, and I think more specifically, what happens when who we become during that period starts to feel like who we are.
Yeah.
Can anybody relate to that?
Yeah.
Because I think there's an enormous difference. There are periods in our lives where we're not particularly recognizable. You know, sometimes we don't even recognize ourselves. For example, you're going through a breakup, or you lose someone in your life, or your marriage ends, or you lose a job, or something happens financially, or somebody betrays you, or, you know, there's something going wrong in your family. And suddenly the person who used to be funny, if that's you, you're not funny anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person who loved going out, dancing all night, doesn't want to leave the house anymore. Or the person who was confident is now insecure or needy. Or, you know, you used to be the most optimistic chick in the room, and now you're cynical. And the classic one, you used to be interested in everybody else, and now you're completely consumed with what's happening to you. It's all about you.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And I think we make this terrible mistake when we look at ourselves in that moment and we decide, well, I guess this is who I am now. But I guess the thesis for today is, let's remember, if you're that person, and if we have a friend that's currently showing up as that person, that your worst moment is not your whole identity.
Yeah, I think I'd take that one step further as well. And that's other people can make that mistake about us as well. Like they might meet you in the worst year of your life and assume that's who you are. They've met you. And, you know, maybe they haven't. Maybe they've met you under extraordinary circumstances.
That is such a great point. I mean, have you ever gone to the defense of someone that you hold in high regard? You take them to a party, and your other friend says, I don't know what you see in that person, Sharon. Like, she's angry and intense, and I didn't connect with her at all. And you're like, no. You don't understand. She just had a big, massive breakup, or, you know, or her mom just died, or whatever it is. But yes, that is exactly where I want to go today.
And frankly, too, sometimes that's not your story to tell about that person. That's not
Totally.
your news to give. So sometimes as the judger, you need to give it a little grace and trust the friend who brought him to the party that there might be something else to that human.
Yeah, good point. I always say birds of a feather flock together. So you're absolutely right. But let's bring this back to our favorite topic, the manifestation perspective. If our identity affects what we expect and what we notice, how we behave and what we believe is possible, what happens when we accidentally build an identity around the worst thing that has ever happened to us? Like, how does that affect our ability to manifest and to attract?
Right. So we're looking at who we are and what version shows up when we're in pain.
Totally.
Okay.
Like, let's talk about breakups, because almost everybody can relate to a breakup. Even if it's not a romantic breakup, you may have had a friend break up, or a neighborhood breakup, or, you know, a breakup.
Yeah.
But before the breakup, you're going along being you, right? You're just being you. You're funny. You're social. You're working. You're making dinner. You're traveling. You're interested in things, you're interested in people, you got lots of friends, and then all of a sudden somebody absolutely breaks your heart, and suddenly you're behaving in ways that you don't even recognize, that doesn't feel like you. You're checking your phone constantly. You're stalking them on Instagram. You're asking friends, what do you think this means? Or, um, you're replaying conversations over and over again. You're crying in the grocery store. You're needy. You're calling friends to either get the take or, to somehow normalize the fact that this isn't actually happening. So you're insecure.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe you're jealous, maybe you're angry, maybe you're drinking too much, maybe you're eating too much, maybe you don't want to go anywhere. Maybe every conversation becomes about what happened.
Well, and all of this is really normal for some period of time, right? We're human, we're ego. We kind of think it's all about us.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I totally can relate to this.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. And I think this is important because we're not diagnosing grief as a manifestation problem or the breakup as the manifestation problem. What we're saying is human beings behave differently when they're hurt. But there's a danger line here, because you can go from I'm behaving this way because I'm devastated to this is who I am now. And those are very, very different places to hang out in.
Well, and it's where your belief starts to sit, because when you're devastated, you might feel a little bit weaker and you don't sort of have that presence of mind.
Totally. Like you're insecure. I am. So you might be saying things to yourself like, I am insecure right now. I am needier. I am bitter. I am alone. I am afraid. I am undesirable. I am difficult. I am abandoned. It is my fault. Right?
Right. And these aren't descriptions of what happened anymore, right? Now they're descriptions of oneself.
Exactly. And this is the danger territory.
Right.
But it can also be the pivot point.
Okay. So let's look at what that pivot might be. Obviously, something's happened to you. It didn't become you, right? So where do we go? I think this happens because, human beings like explanations. Something terrible happens and our brain wants to understand it. Why did that person leave me? Why didn't that person choose me? Why did my business fail? Or why did my friends suddenly disappear? And sometimes, unfortunately, the easiest explanation becomes there must be something wrong with me.
Exactly. And this is where the believer in me starts screaming, because, look at the difference between someone rejected me and I am rejected.
Right.
Between maybe my marriage failed and I'm a failure.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Or I lost my money versus I'm terrible with money. These are big, grandiose statements.
They're judgments, right? They're self-judgments that inform how your brain is thinking about who you are as opposed to an incident.
Right. Like you might be lonely right now and you might say, I'm alone, but you're not alone forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or again, like I've been struggling versus my life is a constant struggle. Like we all know those people that are like it. They sound like tiny changes in language, and they really are, but they're an enormous change in identity.
Right. And I mean, you don't even need the law of attraction to agree with that, because, once I believe I'm the kind of person people leave, then all of a sudden I'm going to behave differently in relationships. I'm going to have that expectation.
Exactly. And so now you're watching for evidence. We go back to this. You're looking for the proof and you'll find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust me, you'll find it. You're looking for evidence. Somebody takes a little bit longer to text you back. They're ghosting me.
Yeah.
Right? Here we go. I told you. Or, your friend doesn't invite you somewhere. See, nobody wants me around.
Yeah.
Somebody you're dating needs a night alone. Oh, they're losing interest. That's the worst thing in the world.
Right.
So now that old wound isn't just something that happened, that breakup, that, that death, maybe that family problem. It's not just something that happened. Now it becomes the lens that you look through and interpret everything that's happening now.
Okay,
And
so let me jump in now with a bit of skeptic. What
Mhm.
about pattern recognition? What about observing data and information? Are you saying that if one is in a mindset that is in the negative, that you're distorting pattern recognition? Because I think we sometimes have to be a little bit careful that, maybe there is a message happening, but maybe we're not viewing it because we're not in the right headspace to view it either.
Well, I think everything that you said is accurate, right? And it is distorted.
Okay.
Are you a bad person? Of course not,
Right.
right? But regardless of what's happened, are you that struggling loser, leftover, worthless person? Of course you're not.
Right.
But the lens that you're looking through right now has distorted everything.
Okay.
And here's where I want to bring it back to manifestation. So, what happens when you meet people that are at their worst?
Okay.
Okay. So, there's another uncomfortable part about this. Other people don't necessarily know the old you, right? We just talked about this. You go to a party, you bring your best friend, and you introduce them to another really good friend, and you've talked highly about this other person. You're bringing in the newbie, and your other friend that's been around forever is like, I don't know what you see in that person, Sharon.
Yeah.
Like, she is a dud.
Yeah.
But you know she's not a dud, and you know she's going through something really heavy right now. So imagine meeting that person during the worst time of their life, maybe. I
Hmm.
mean, she's going through a horrible divorce, or she's angry, or she's suspicious, or she's negative, or she talks about her ex constantly because she is going through a horrible breakup. She's consumed maybe by what's happening in her life. And this new friend might walk away thinking, wow, she really is a negative person and I don't want to hang out with her.
Yeah.
But maybe she isn't, right? Like maybe you've just met a really positive person, a great human being having the absolute worst year of their life.
Sure. And here's where I might challenge you a little bit. And I'll feel two ways about this. Other people are still allowed to respond to the person who's actually standing in front of them.
Oh, oh, totally.
On the other hand, I think sometimes we need to give people a little bit of grace because it's not necessarily the friend's responsibility to inform the other person what's going on in that person's life. And sometimes people are just having a bad day.
Yeah, and listen, you just said grace. We don't have a lot of grace in the world today, right? We
No,
don't
we
have a
don't.
lot of grace and we don't have a lot of mercy. I mean, even as easy as this, I just told you I had 15 people for dinner on Monday night after coming back from a long weekend away with family. And then we had the whole family, the extended family, over for dinner the night we got back from this long weekend away.
Hmm.
And a month ago, it sounded like a great idea. But the day it was happening, I'm like, what have I done to myself? And I happened to be talking to a friend of mine about another event coming up, and I was really short with her, right? And I'm sure she left that conversation thinking, man, like, what is wrong with you, Jen? But I was able the next morning to go back and say, I'm sorry, I was short. I was exhausted. I probably shouldn't have even be responding to your texts. Sorry about that. This is what I meant, right? So the worst moment in your life doesn't define you, but your behavior during the worst moment in your life still affects other people.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
those things can be very true simultaneously.
Well, and I think that's a really important point to make because otherwise this could just become an excuse. Well, that's not really me, so you can't hold me responsible for what I did or what I said. No, I mean, you still did it. And in your case, you turned around and you said, hey, I was having a bad moment. I recognize my words may have affected you. I was certainly affected at the time, but here I am. I'm back. I'm sorry. let's, keep going.
Exactly. So, maybe you weren't a good friend in that moment. Maybe you were difficult. Maybe you were completely self-absorbed. Maybe you did push people away. Maybe you said things you regret. I mean, ding, ding, ding. That's me. You can acknowledge all of that without deciding, therefore, I am a terrible person.
Hmm.
Why don't instead you say, I wasn't myself. I don't particularly like how I showed up that day or that year, and I'm going to change it. And those are completely different from shame.
Right. Okay, so let's think about who you are when the circumstances do change.
And this is something that I think we don't ask enough. Like when you're in the middle of something terrible, ask yourself, and I don't think we do this enough, who was I before this happened?
Right.
What used to make me laugh? What was I interested in? What did I talk about before this breakup or this thing? Where did I go? What was I excited about? How did I treat people back then? What did people love about being around me back then? What did I love about me?
I think you go even further than that, because particularly if you're thinking about relationships that might have been over a long period of time, and you and I have both gone this after being married 25, 30 years, whatever it was, to go back to who you were as that 20 something self. Yes, you can find the joy of who you were, but you've also evolved. Having said that, I mean, I think one of the things I find most interesting from a personal perspective, and I've mentioned this to you before, is that after everything was said and done, have moments where I discover the girl I used to be, the stuff that brings me joy and that I giggle about, and the freedom to be more of who I am.
Totally. Like you just said to me before we got on this podcast, do you like entertaining? Because I just told you about the 15 people on Monday and I got 15 people coming again tomorrow night. You said, do you like to entertain? I'm like, is that a trick question? Because I just told you I've entertained 30 people in the last 4 days. Yes, I love entertaining. But when I was going through my dark days, I wasn't entertaining.
Yeah.
I wasn't even entertaining the thought of entertaining. But what if I had entertained? What if I could, and now I do, I'm smarter, wiser, better, years later. What if I could remind myself of all the things I loved and all the things that bring me joy and giggle, to your point? What if I'd never stopped doing those things during those tough moments? Would that change things?
Well, so I'm going to bring you back to a memory that I have of you while you were going through that period. When I was visiting from Malaysia, and I was
Okay.
visiting you in your apartment.
Yeah.
And in true Jennifer style, you had a bottle of wine, some fantastic nibblies,
Right.
a lovely little balcony, and we just sat there and chatted.
So I
And
was entertaining.
well, and here's what I would say. I think the essence of who we are can be grasped. We
Yeah.
might not notice it because we're feeling the way we're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but as you keep saying, like, it's still there. It might not be there for 15 people,
Yeah.
but it might be there for one. And that to me, I mean, I can still picture the golden sunlight as the sun was going down that evening and us just enjoying one another's company.
Yeah.
So still the essence of who we are is still there, even in our worst times, is what I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. And if I think about those times in those years, my beautiful backyard from my married life was now reduced to wrought iron fire escapes and living above restaurants, which, was, I never felt shame around that. Even though I was in my most hurting of years, I was never ashamed of it. So we still invited people over. We still broke bread and shared wine and It wasn't what it was, but it was still there. You're right. I, you might not get back to exactly where you were, as you say, but maybe, maybe that's better because maybe you don't go back, right? Maybe something really painful changes you and you do become a different version of what you were, but you get to participate in deciding how it changes you. And I think that's the real great golden nugget.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction because a breakup might make you more discerning. It doesn't have to make you suspicious.
Yes.
Grief might make you a little bit more compassionate. It doesn't have to be hopeless.
Right.
And, failure, and we've both failed at things, makes you wiser. It's a lesson. It doesn't have to make you afraid to ever try again.
Exactly. So maybe the question isn't so much how do we get the old me back? Maybe it's who do I want to be on this other side?
Right.
And that's a manifestation question.
So let's talk about how our story that we tell ourselves starts to become an identity.
So this is where I think we need to talk about the stories that we repeat. Sometimes we're telling the truth, like my husband left, or I left, or my mom died, or whatever it is. That's true, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that is true. Maybe I did lose my business. Maybe that is true. Maybe I did have a bad financial year. That could be true. But watch what sometimes gets attached to that. Okay. So, and that's what always happens to me. I'm always bad with money. People always leave me. I can never trust anybody. Every time I get ahead, something happens to me. I'm always the one who gets screwed. So now we've left the event and we have entered a new identity.
Well, and that identity is fear-based, right? I mean, and from my side, I'd call that pattern recognition going wrong because
Yeah.
on the one hand, our brains are trying to protect us. If someone's hurt you badly, your brain's going to basically say, excellent, let's not let that happen again.
Right.
So it starts looking for the warning signs everywhere.
Totally. Which is like you call it pattern recognition or observation bias. I'm going to call it, you know, manifestation, looking through a different perspective / filter, which is reality bending. Like we're talking about bending reality here.
Sure.
And it's fascinating from a manifestation perspective because what we focus on, we notice more of, right?
Right.
But listen to how close these ideas are, okay, for a minute. If I believe that people always disappoint me or a love affair is always going to end up in heartbreak, I'm going to start to notice disappointment all the time. See, there he goes. He let me down. Here we go. We're going down that road again.
Yeah.
If I believe that nobody ever includes me, I'm going to notice everywhere the invitation I didn't receive, regardless of how many I did.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
always notice the one. If I believe men can't be trusted, I'm constantly scanning for evidence that men can't be trusted. And I'm going to give you a stupid little also analogy. You can't see this, but I'm wearing a sapphire bracelet that my husband bought me, and there's one sapphire fell out.
Yeah. I see that.
One sapphire fell out on the weekend. Well, where do you think my eye goes?
To the one that's missing.
Do you think it goes to the other ones that are gleaming like little darlings, or do you think it goes to the one that's missing?
Yeah. And that's
Right?
what we're doing, right? We're always noticing what's missing. I think in some respects we've talked about this in the scarcity mentality.
Totally.
It's like, I don't have enough. I'm going to take some of yours, as opposed to there's enough for everybody, including everything being right in the world.
Yeah. It comes right down to the most simple of concepts, right?
Yeah.
Do you believe we live in a kind universe? Do you believe in abundance or in scarcity?
Although we've just had the comment where there's not a lot of grace happening in the world, maybe we just need to contribute to grace a little bit more.
Or yes, exactly. Or maybe there is more grace and we're just not seeing it.
Right.
Right? So this is where the universe is reflecting my belief. The universe will constantly reflect your belief or your brain is filtering reality according to its belief.
Hmm.
So the belief is still affecting my experience. And that's why identity matters so much.
Okay, so here's the other side of it, right? And I think we get caught up in trying to stay loyal to the version of you prior to what it was you were going to survive, or the version of you that survived. Like maybe we're having a false loyalty to something that needed to metamorphosize and change into something new.
Totally. And this is an entirely different topic we could do next week, but we are allowed to change too, right? We are allowed to change and metamorphosize and become something better, faster, stronger, or different to what our friends and family might know.
Well,
Let's explore that
and
next week.
here's the other
But
side, right? It's that a caterpillar has to go completely to liquid mush before
yeah,
it becomes a butterfly. I mean, that is the epitome of
change.
metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And it's messy.
Yeah, it is messy. And you don't come out looking what you went in looking like, right?
Right, right.
So, something else I'd like to explore today, though, is sometimes we think we become weirdly loyal, as you say, to the version of ourselves that got us through something. Like maybe the anger got you through the divorce, or maybe shutting everyone out got you through the grief, or maybe the cynicism stopped you from being disappointed. Those might genuinely have helped you survive a period.
But they're coping mechanisms.
Yes, they are. Um, Something that protected you in one season can absolutely imprison you in the next one. And I think we can all point at examples of this.
Yeah, because if I needed a wall around me 6 months ago to protect myself, that doesn't mean I've got to live behind that wall forever.
Exactly. And you don't betray the hurt version of yourself by eventually just becoming happy. Um, you don't betray somebody you lost by laughing again immediately, sometimes, right?
Hmm.
But at some point, you might say to yourself, I'm ready to move differently now. And that's huge. You're not required to stay loyal to the version of you that survived the worst thing you ever experienced in your whole life. You can thank her, you can understand her, and then you can outgrow her.
Well, and I think there's a cautionary tale in the outgrowing or becoming different that maybe you and I can explore later, because sometimes by going through all that stuff, we become a new version of ourselves that we like more. But we might find conflict with people around us who say, but you're different. So now let's bring this back specifically to manifestation, because that's why we're here.
Yeah. So for me, manifestation isn't only what do I want? We've talked about this before. It's also who am I expecting myself to be?
Okay.
Because if my identity becomes or is, I'm broken, I'm unlucky, I'm unwanted, I'm the one that always gets left out, I'm the one that never gets invited, I'm bad with money, nothing works for me, then I am carrying those assumptions into what comes next. And I don't mean, Jennifer thinks she's unlucky, let's send her another disaster. I mean, my identity affects how I show up.
Okay.
So, like what I attempt, what I tolerate, what I reject, what I recognize, what I expect.
Okay. So I can agree with that. And I think if one believes one is undesirable, then you might actually start to accept relationships that you shouldn't be accepting. If you don't think you're capable, then you might not apply for something because you've got all of this story happening in your head. And if you think everybody's going to leave you, you might actually be pushing away somebody before they have a chance to leave you, or a chance to get to know you, or a chance to get to know the new you that's growing out of all of this.
Exactly. Do you see the full circle part of this? Like you
Yeah.
can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it like a law of attraction. What are you attracting?
Yeah.
But yeah, then you're like, see, I knew it. I knew I wasn't going to get invited to that party. I knew this was here. It's constantly this issue that you're constantly trying to prove right.
Sure.
And then that identity gets stronger and stronger. So maybe manifestation starts with interrupting that loop.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of an audit, and as always, give us a little bit of homework.
So I think what could be helpful is I want everybody to simply do one thing this week. Think about one difficult thing that you've gone through, or maybe that even happened this week. Maybe you're still in it, and just finish this sentence. Because this happened, I started believing that I am X.
Fill in the blank.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to say it again. Because this thing happened, I started believing that I am fill in the blank.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. Last night I did something that in the moment I thought was, fun and hilarious. And I sent a theme song and I renamed a group text, and everybody in the group text, nobody responded. Like nobody said, that's hilarious. That cracks me up. I love the new name. Crickets,
Right.
right? Still crickets. Still crickets 12 hours later. So I started I'm going to fill in the blank. Because this happened, I did this thing and now I have crickets. I started believing that I am not worthy of being in the group, that I really blew it. I've gone there again. I went too far again, right?
Yeah.
And it's not what you believe about them. It's what you start believing about you.
Right.
Am I really? Do I go too far? Sure, I do. I do all the time. But does that make me a bad person and not worth hanging out with? Of course not, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't make me unlovable. Doesn't make me stupid. It doesn't make me difficult. Doesn't mean I'm alone on an island because it's still crickets, or that I'm unwanted, or that I'm a failure, or I am too much at times. Like, let's face it. But, whatever it is, you ask yourself, was that true before this happened?
That's a very good question.
Right? And then maybe, do I want to carry this identity into what happens next?
Yeah.
Because maybe you can't change what happened. I can't take back the group text, renaming, and theme song I put in last night. I can't take that back. I can't change what happened, but I can decide who I am today. And I can decide that I'm not a failure because of that. And I can decide that just because nobody responded doesn't mean I'm worthless. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they laughed at their desk and got busy and went back to something else. And even if they didn't, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. We shouldn't confuse a temporary adaptation with a permanent personality trait. I
Yeah,
mean, we become anxious because we've got unstable circumstances and it happens. And, we withdraw with grief and get angry because we're hurt. But that doesn't fundamentally mean that that's who we are all the time as a personality trait. And I think that's where you're trying to get.
exactly. And I've been so guilty of this in the past. And, maybe somebody listening today needs to hear this because I've needed to hear this. You may have been difficult. You may have been needy or angry or isolated. You may have been jealous. And you may have talked to your friends about the same topic and they wanted to throw you out a window. That's possible,
Yeah,
right?
we've all had that friend, and I think we've all been that friend.
I've been that friend for sure. And maybe you weren't particularly magnetic in that moment. Maybe people did pull away. Maybe you don't like the person that you were in that moment. Okay,
Yeah.
own it. Who cares? But repair what needs repairing. Apologize where you need to apologize, but don't confuse that with, I don't like who I was in that moment with, I don't like who I am, period.
Right. Got it.
Those are totally different statements. And all manifestation aside, I think this is where we begin to create something new, not by pretending that the bad thing didn't happen, but by refusing to allow the worst thing that happened to become the definition of the person that it's happening to.
I think at the end of the day, the question isn't only what happened to me, but it's who am I going to be now?
Yeah, and that's the whole episode.
Yeah.
The worst moment in your life is not your whole identity.
Great.
Right?
Okay. So this is Skeptic approved, I think.
Oh my gosh, did you
I
say
know.
that? Wow.
I didn't say it was manifestation approved. It just said skeptic approved.
Hey, listen, at this point, I'll take what I can get.
Okay, so that's pretty good. I appreciate all your insight, Jennifer. And as always, we have fantastic conversations. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you on the next episode of Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. Thanks for tuning in to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a friend, believer or skeptic. And don't forget to leave us a review so others can join in the debate. Plus, check out Jennifer's TikTok account, Manifestation RX, where she writes daily prescriptions for manifesting your dreams. Think practical tips with a dash of magic. We love hearing your questions and stories, so tell us what you're manifesting or questioning this week. Until next time, keep an open mind and maybe manifest a little magic.